It was starting to feel like national parks just couldn't be dog friendly. That is, until we got to Acadia. Welcome to Maggie's favorite national park.
You're listening to Travel FOMO, a podcast for people self-diagnosed with wanderlust.
Welcome to the Travel FOMO podcast. My name is Hilarie Houghton, and I'm here with my cold weather warrior, lover of all things chilly, my husband Jamin.
Not super cold, but if you need a jacket, count me in.
I feel like you do like cooler temps.
Yeah.
And so we were headed exactly to one of your favorite places in this episode.
Yes, Acadia National Park.
Yeah, your favorite national park, would you say?
Yes, I think it is my favorite. And there's a lot that are really great, but I loved Acadia.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I did too. And I'm not as it's not one of my faves, but it's up there. It's a pretty good one.
I mean, so much of it is so cool, and when you throw Bar Harbor in the mix,
yeah,
it makes it that much better. And that whole area, I love it up there.
It really helps for a national park to have a great little city or town nearby. Mm-hmm. Really makes a big impact.
Yeah. It can really bump it up a notch.
Yes, exactly. We are in the 11th season of the Travel FOMO podcast. We are east in the Airstream this season.
Yep. And
we have just left the Great Smoky Mountains. We have also been to Nashville in this season. So
lots of fun. Tennessee's great.
Yeah, we do. We really like Tennessee a lot. That was great. And now we are at the amazing National Park of Acadia. And if you missed last episode with the Great Smoky Mountains, you'll hear about a close bear encounter that we had, which was pretty exciting and kind of changed my perspective on bears and how afraid I am of them, surprisingly.
I think it really did help you a lot, which is kind of sad that it happened as we sort of left bear country.
True.
And you didn't get to, I feel like you would have enjoyed a lot of the other places more.
Yes.
After that experience.
I actually want to go back to a lot of other places because I feel like I would enjoy them more now.
Yeah.
Yeah. True. So true. We were actually trying to work around Hurricane Fiona in this episode and in this whole season, or in a couple episodes of this season. Yeah. Things changed a little bit. So as we kind of bounce around the East Coast, that's why you kind of see our path diverge a little bit. But this took 2 days of driving again. So we had gone from Denver to Nashville, which was 2 hard days of driving. And then from the Smokies up to Acadia, which was another 2 hard days of driving. So we were, and the weather was shifting a lot while we were driving. So by the time we got up north, it was actually pretty cold when we arrived.
Yeah, it was starting to get chilly. Fall was setting in, which was part of our planning why we drove across so much of the country the way we did. Was one, so that we could see the northern national parks when the only time you could get in them in the middle of the summer. True. And then 2, so that we could be in the Northeast in the fall. And so that was just kind of starting to kick off, which was nice too. I mean, especially for me, I like cooler weather. And so getting into it, and the fall is really made for the Northeast.
Yeah, it's kind of fun time to be there.
But we, like you said, we were trying to avoid Hurricane Fiona, so we were trying to figure out where the best place for us to stay so we could get as close to Acadia as we could without also encountering weather.
Right.
So we drove and decided to spend our first night in Scranton, Pennsylvania. So if you're big fans of The Office, we ate at Alfredo's Pizza Cafe, where we had a medium amount of good pizza.
So funny. And they really play off of The Office too.
Yeah, you can buy t-shirts that say a medium amount of good pizza and things like that. And it was nice. It was fun. The pizza was good.
Right. Yeah. And it's actually in an outdoor, what would you call it? Shopping mall area. Mm-hmm. So we could actually go there. there was like a place to park.
Yeah, a
the
big
RV.
parking lot where we could park. Yeah.
So it was like, oh, this works out okay. That's nice.
And we ended up staying overnight at a casino in the casino parking lot. A lot of casinos will let you do that, and they have kind of an area at this one where they let people stay. And there were other RVers parked out there.
Yeah.
And we'd actually heard about it at a Buc-ee's parking lot.
Yeah.
We had been stopped at Buc-ee's, and some people saw our Airstream and wanted to come up and talk about it. They had one that they had just bought and were restoring, and we were told them kind of where we were headed, and they said, well, if you go through Scranton, there's a big casino there that'll let you stay overnight. And so that's what we did. We actually ended up through our journeys like crisscrossing through Scranton several times.
Yeah.
And so we stayed there more than once.
Yeah, it was a great little good thing to know. So
yeah,
it helps to talk to people, and
it
make
does.
friends.
It does get little tips, especially when you haven't been places.
Yes. Well, we did also find another gym on our own. And this was Northampton, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So when we drove from Scranton, we got to Northampton and decided to stay a couple nights at a KOA out in the country there. And it was like surrounded by some farms, and it was like this really sweet area. And when I say it was out in the country, it was truly out in the country.
It really
like
was.
On these tiny little roads getting out to it. And we went for a run while we were there. We hung out just in the trailer, kind of living life, editing our videos, and kind of doing some podcast stuff. But then we went into the little town a couple times. And Northampton is so charming. It's got all these historic vibes. I remember saying, I just want to drive around and see an apple orchard and a pumpkin patch, because it was feeling all fallish. And like within 60 seconds on our way to town, we came upon a apple orchard. Like it was like mind blowing. Like I was like, oh my gosh, this is a real thing. All these things that I want are just falling in my lap right now. And also in town, they had surprisingly some really fun little boutique shopping and stuff. They even had an Urban Outfitters that was in a really old bank building. It was like several stories high. It had all these huge ceilings, so it was all one floor, but like it was really, really tall, high up. And I can just picture it being an old bank when you would go into maybe like a long time ago, going into an old bank and like just windows way up high and everything is just super fancy feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And but they turned it into Urban Outfitters. I thought that was like really cool on behalf of the town itself, but also Urban Outfitters. And I've seen that in other Urban Outfitters too, where they're willing to just step into the local environment and adapt to whatever it is that like the city has already. I think is really cool.
It was really kind of reminiscent of what you would see in a lot of Europe.
Yes.
Like I remember seeing like H&M's in like really old buildings and stuff like that. And it reminded me of that.
Yeah. Like I love it when brands accommodate like that rather than being like, well, no, we're like this, like
tear it all down and build our box.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. There was also a really old hotel that looked really nice. It was huge. And then a lot of other like businesses operating in historic buildings that had been remodeled on the inside. So everything looked really old on the outside, new on the inside. There was an old movie theater. There's also something called Thorne's Marketplace, and it's a popular old multi-level department store, kind of like they call it a mall, but it doesn't feel like any kind of mall I've been to. Yeah. It's like this building with all these tiny little hallways and all these little rooms that you walk into that are stores. It's the most it reminds me of is Pike's Place.
Yes. Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of that.
I was going to say the exact same thing.
Yeah. And we also went to Tunnel Bar, which is like this really modern bar on the inside, but it's inside of an old Union train station. Yeah. So it's literally shaped like a tunnel on the inside. And that was really cool. They had good cocktails. It was just a fun little place to go into. And you literally are walking into an underground place, which was really fun.
We would not have stayed there if Hurricane Fiona hadn't like forced us
disrupted.
to delay a
Yeah.
couple days.
Yeah.
But it was really nice. Really got us into that like Massachusetts fall vibe,
Yeah.
and which was a perfect lead in to going to Acadia.
Yeah.
After the hurricane had passed and everything was kind of through, we went up to Acadia. We stayed at Smuggler's Den RV park, and because we had to move our stay around, like we had to switch sites halfway through our stay while we were there, but it was a really nice park.
Yeah.
Really enjoyable. We did, however, have another travel day mishap, as we are wont to do. We get there and set up, and I go to open the fridge, and the whole door just comes off of the fridge into my hands. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not good. Just so frustrating to have.
Yeah.
Like, and that's part of the RV deal. And everybody tells you it, but I don't think you fully grasp it until you have an RV that like, you're going to take this thing and you're going to drive it, and it's just going to shake on the highway. It's just going to shake for hours and hours and hours, and stuff's going to break.
Yeah.
And fortunately, it was just sort of like the top hinge of the fridge that broke, and we're able to MacGyver it back together again. And so the fridge still functioned.
I think we like took everything out of the door too. You know how you can store things on the inside of your fridge door? I think we're like, okay, can't handle that no more.
Yeah, we made sure to like take all the weight out of there until we could like fix it a little bit better. But we looked into like a new fridge, and a new fridge was going to be like $2,000, and that doesn't even include installation. And we're also moving so quickly and around so much that it's like we can't afford to get off plan, because we've prepaid for a lot of our RV spots, and we're too close to the point now where we could cancel and get our money back. We can't hang out somewhere for 2 weeks and wait for a fridge to come in and for it to be installed. And so we're like, what do we do?
And we even looked into like buying a door for the fridge, or buying like just the little fixture, just the little piece that broke and all that kind of stuff. And it was such an old fridge that we couldn't hardly do any of that.
Yeah. Well, it was frustrating too, because the fridge actually worked great.
Right.
Like kept stuff cold. The freezer worked great.
Yeah, it did.
And even like would work on propane when we weren't hooked up to electricity. So the fridge was like perfect, and it was so frustrating that this little bitty piece being broken was the problem. But we ended up fixing it in our own special way. So
basically duct tape is what it would function.
But again, another MacGyvered way of the Southern engineering something to work.
Yep.
We were really glad to be finally there in Acadia and like have our plane disruption sort of back on track and settled into a spot where we knew we were going to stay for a few days and be somewhere that was really cool.
Yeah, it was nice. And we really enjoyed Bar Harbor while we were there. And I mean, it is just so cute. If you are up there, you've got to go. There's little white fences around every little business and home. Like a lot of the business even look like home. A lot of the businesses even look like homes. There's like, and I've always heard people talk about Bar Harbor, but I didn't exactly know what to expect. I thought the harbor would be the main focus, but there was so much more to the town than just the harbor. What I did find funny was there were so many t-shirt shops. Just like in Colorado and like Durango and different places, which we just thought was really funny. I got me a sweatshirt from there, and I love it. There were so many. They actually had really cool t-shirts.
They did have a lot of good options.
Yeah, and so I ended up getting me one. It's very vintagey, but and then there was like a little cemetery there inside the town, and I remember looking at that. We were walking past it. There was actually haunted tours. Do you remember that? We didn't get to go on one.
Yeah,
but I wanted to. That'd be so fun. But there was a little cemetery that we walked past, and we were both just like, is that real? Like, we almost couldn't tell if it was real or not, because it was so pristine and well kept and beautiful. Like, it was just like, wow, that's actually precious. And it had a white picket fence and all the thing, all the way around it.
It definitely had all of the like Northeast, like Sleepy Hollow, Ichabod Crane, like vibes to it.
Yeah.
Whereas like, no, this has to be staged somehow. This can't be how it really looks.
Well, I think it was even well lit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really well at night too. And you're just like, wow, somebody put a lot of thought into this little cemetery. And it was smack in the middle of town too.
Well, and I remember we went for dinner at Finback's, which was this cool little place. I had a burger. I think you had like a lobster grilled cheese or something like that.
I did. It was good.
Because we were definitely in lobster country. So if you like lobster, then Bar Harbor is a place you need to go.
Yeah.
But it was really cool, really relaxed, seaside vibes, and like wintry seaside vibes, like big sweaters and beanies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which I had so little experience of the ocean in that way. Like all of my thoughts of ocean are like Florida, like really hot, and you're on the beach and you're getting sunburned. Getting to be on the ocean and in more of these like chilly atmospheres was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely a vibe to it for sure. And then there's Acadia National Park, which is right there. What I loved about it is that it was really dog friendly.
It really was, yeah.
Very helpful for us.
Mm-hmm.
And also it helped that it wasn't really hot at that time. So we could take Maggie with us and maybe run in somewhere or go to lunch or do something and have her in the pickup and not be bad dog parents.
Right.
Acadia National Park is basically made up of different plots of land on Mount Desert Island. So it's a little disjointed. So it kind of makes sense that that kind of background of the park, because it's different. When you look at a map of it, you're like, oh, there's a piece of the park and there's a piece of the park and somebody lives there, and then there's a town here and then there's another piece of the park. It's kind of like this patchwork, and not everything is even maybe connected. I'm trying to remember exactly.
No, you're right. I mean, it's crazy how much like Olympic it is in that way.
Yeah.
And that it's oceanside. And then it's like, here's part of the park, and then you're going to leave the park for a minute and you'll be back into a different part of it. And it's sort of scattered throughout that area.
Yeah. Well, and Acadia was the first park to be created completely from private land that was donated by wealthy people. Mm-hmm. It was basically created by a wealthy Harvard grad named George Dorr, and he forged the path and really created it in 1916. People consider him to be the father of Acadia because he was the first superintendent. And it's definitely got those, like you've been saying, classic New England, oceanside vibes. And also one thing that I love about it is that compared to other national parks, it's really manageable in terms of how big it is.
Yes. Yeah.
Like it's not overwhelming. You can stay outside the park and then still go into the park, and you're not spending hours on the road, which I really appreciate. There's a lot of short hikes, a lot of carriage roads where they literally used to have carriages drive on, and now they still will take you on some carriage rides. Yeah. Which is kind of fun. But most everything is accessible by a paved road. So that's really nice. Like especially if you're like, if you have accessibility issues, you can still see a whole lot just by driving around, which is really nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it used to be, I love throwing in things like this. It used to be a summer getaway for families like the Roosevelts and the Rockefellers and the Pulitzers and the Fords and all those people. And get this, the island is still home to famous people like Martha Stewart, Steven Spielberg, which is why probably some of his movies have these vibes,
I can see that.
And Susan Sarandon. So there's that.
Oh, another famous people tie-in for Hilarie. It really is a cool park, and there's one part of the park called Cadillac Mountain, and at certain times of the year, it's actually the first point where light will touch in North America.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. And the sunrise is supposed to be amazing from there. And so we got up super early.
Yeah.
To drive up. And it wasn't a crazy long drive, but the sun's coming up early. So we're up really early, drive up to the top of Cadillac Mountain. There's other people up there, and, we're all excited to watch the sunrise because you see it come up over the ocean. And this glorious thing from on top of Cadillac Mountain, where, we've got our cameras, we're going to film it. It's going to be the feature of the YouTube video. It's going to be awesome. And just like all the other places, it's just a bunch of fog.
That's all we got. A bunch of fog. And you can see all those amazing views on YouTube.
Yes. Yeah, you can go see. It will look like the morning that we got up early in the Smoky Mountains. It will look like when we got up early at Big Sur. It will look like this big white wall that we're sitting next to in our new apartment. It's just a bunch of fog.
Exactly.
The nice thing about it, it is one of the dog friendly trails. And so we did have Maggie with us. You can go out and watch the YouTube video and see us hiking around up there in the fog.
Yeah.
It was kind of blistery and a little misty and chilly, so it was still a lot of fun and worth getting up early.
She got all wet and super curly just from walking around in fog, which was really cute.
Yeah,
so funny. Fun. Well, one of my other favorite hikes was Jordan Pond.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! And my brother and sister-in-law recently went there with their kids, and it's just so beautiful. It made me remember how much I loved it. It was formed by glaciers, and the pond itself was, and it is beautiful and pristine. It's super easy to hike around it. It's about 3 miles, completely flat. It's interesting though, because there's a section of it that includes a half a mile of walking on raised wooden planks.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fun and different, almost like a little bit of an obstacle course in the middle of, the wilderness,
Yeah.
And you could really, at that point, you could start to see fall happening all around us. And I remember looking down and seeing red leaves falling off the trees on the ground and thinking oh my goodness, that is picture perfect.
Yeah, it really was a great time of year to be there. We also did the carriage roads. So there's several trails that are old carriage roads. And I love that it has this kind of unique thing. And several parks have sort of stuff like this. I think of Glacier has the big red buses and things like that used to tour people around. And here they had carriage rides, and they still do. You can still ride carriages there, but they have these carriage trails all over the park. And you can hike on them. We did. Maggie could smell the horses right away. And Maggie thinks that horses are the most terrifying monsters ever created.
Yeah.
Super scared of them at all points, at all times.
Yeah.
And so she could smell them. Didn't want to go. We had to force her down the trail.
That's
periodically
right.
She would just stop and be no, this is way too dangerous, guys.
Yep.
We have to go back. And had to keep her going. You can actually hike down to the stables where they keep a lot of the horses. And I do think it would be fun to go and do one of the carriage rides at some point. We didn't because we had Maggie with us, but I think that would be a really cool way to see a lot of the park.
Yeah, it really would. And I can imagine older couples visiting in the area thinking oh, wow, it's so pleasant, to ride around in a carriage. You don't have to hike as much. You can kind of see a lot without having to physically do it yourself,
Well, the trails, even hiking the trails, they're nice and smooth. The incline isn't crazy because they're made for horses to haul these carriages around. And so it does make for really great trails too.
Well, on the carriage roads, but on some of the other trails, they get a little dicey.
That is true.
The Beehive Loop Trail it's one of their famous ladder trails in Acadia National Park, and it is scary. It's like, I would say so we did Angel's Landing in Zion National Park, and that was by far like the scariest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
But as far as a trail, Beehive Loop, I think that might be the next scariest thing I've done.
I mean, it's pretty scary.
Yeah.
Like, they do have like literal metal, like footholds, like put into the rock for you to like climb up a little bit, and
because
then you go further.
Nothing to stand on.
Yeah. And you go up again, and it's very single file.
Yes.
Where like one person at a time. And
if one person can't go, you can't go.
Yeah.
If somebody gets scared, you just watch them hyperventilate in front of you. Like, that's all. That's kind of crazy. There is another one that's more extreme called a Precipice Loop. But they do recommend that you do Beehive Loop first and then decide if you want something more extreme. And that was a really good idea, because we did not want to go more extreme. We were like, extreme. You know what? We're good. We're good.
I did really like for the Beehive Loop that you would go up. You went up this really extreme path and climb these ladders and stuff. But then there was an option to go down sort of the backside.
Yeah. You couldn't come back down that same way.
Right. So you didn't have to like face it all again, only in reverse going down.
Yeah.
Like, you were able to like take a more leisurely hike back down the other side.
Yeah.
I appreciated that.
Which is, I guess that's the way this harder loop would be too, because they're both loops.
Yeah.
So like all you have to do is be able to go up. You don't have to worry about coming back down, at least.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah. And they're nice too, because they're not crazy long. I really liked that about a lot of Acadia's trails.
Yeah.
Is that, 2-3 miles and you're done.
Right. Exactly. You kind of get to see more by doing that. Yeah. I feel like. Yeah. Okay. So what did you think of the Beehive Loop Trail with all the ladders? And I mean, it was pretty scary.
It was really scary. Obviously I didn't, if you've been listening, you'll know that I didn't finish Angel's Landing with you. Like, you did that on your own. I started it and then was like, nope, this is too much. I actually finished this one. Did not want to continue on to the precipice, the scarier loop.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I did this one. Like, it was scary, and like definitely moments of like, oh, what did I get myself into? But it was nice, and you get up to the top, and you feel that sense of accomplishment, and it is a really great view of like the ocean. The mountains there are this kind of like pink granite, and all these more northern trees, fir trees and pine trees and things like that, and it's a really great view. So I'm glad I did it, but it was definitely challenging.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah. I remember we got to go back into Bar Harbor for lunch. Another nice thing about Acadia, kind of what you said, it's all very accessible and easy to like drive around. So you're not committed to like a deep part of the park.
And every time we would drive from our campsite into Bar Harbor, we drove the same path, and we kept looking at the trees, and you could see the trees change every day. Yeah. And it was like, oh my gosh, we're literally seeing fall happen before our eyes.
Yeah, that was really cool. Seeing all the color come in just in that week that we were there.
Yeah.
Was pretty great.
Yeah. But I would say lunch at Getty's was like maybe our favorite. Getty's was our favorite place to go.
Yeah. If you're there in Bar Harbor and you only get to eat one time, go to Getty's. We had lobster rolls. They were like $35 a piece, so they're expensive.
Yeah.
But really, really good. Like super legit lobster rolls. They had like a pumpkin cider.
So good.
That was really good. It's worth going there just to have the pumpkin cider.
Yes, exactly.
But it's a cool old spot. You can look out the windows and see the bay and see like boats coming in and stuff like that, and see this big park that they have right there. It was a great spot. It's one of those places that you're like, man, I wish I could just go right back there.
Yeah.
And be back on that bar stool, looking out at the bay with a pumpkin cider. Like, it's one of those moments that you hang on to. You're like, I just wish I could just like transport right back to that.
Yeah, it's pretty charming. We did. Okay, so you had noted earlier that we kind of had to move sites, our campsites in the middle of the week. And so right around this time, we're like, okay, well, we got to move campsites again. And we started noticing, this is just kind of a note on RV sites. And this was, Smuggler's Den was an actual RV park, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So I started noticing a difference between like, you've got the East Coast RV parks, and then you've got them in like the western central half of the US. And in the West, RV parks are a lot more like resorts, I feel like. And maybe in Florida too. Maybe it's warm weather places actually. But I felt like that's where we saw really nice showers and bathrooms and pools, and like, it's, you know, like a resort. And then on the East Coast, no, they're like rough. They're rough RV parks for the most part. I mean, buildings with exposed pipes. The showers are harsher. Like everything about them was just like rougher, almost like they were older in a way.
Yes. Yeah.
It is kind of what it feels like. And funny story to that point is, in Smuggler's Den, I felt like I was getting attacked by the showers every single day. And did I not complain about it every single day?
Oh, you did.
I was so okay. So to get hot water, you have to turn it on full blast. I like, seriously, this is so frustrating. And I'm talking like full blast. Like, think Shawshank Redemption, right? Like, this is intense. And the showers were so tiny that there's nowhere to get away from the water. And it's a women's shower. And I found this in a couple different places. Like, in the women's shower, it's like a guy, obviously, probably, installed these showers. And the shower heads are so high that like there's nowhere you can go to get away from it, because like you're so short that you just get pounded in the face with the shower head. And I'm average height. I'm not really that short. I'm 5'6", but the shower heads were definitely not low enough for the average woman. And I had to stand there while my face was getting like pelted with hot water. And if I turned at all, I would be washing my hair suddenly. And I have a really strong personality, so it's not often that I feel like completely helpless. But after taking a shower in those showers, I honestly felt like I'd been shoved around. I hated it so much. I felt like I'd been bullied. And so every time I left the showers, my hair was wet. My contacts were nearly gorged out of my eyes. I remember that. Like, that was so frustrating to me. I would get out and start drying off. And then it was like one time, it's such a tight little shower that I had leaned over to dry off, and like there was like a spider like a couple inches from my face, and I'm like, just like freaks me out. And these are such old, like run down places that it's like roughing it a little bit more. And at one point I like went to like shut the door of the bathroom and realized that it didn't even matter if I shut the door, because the screen door just had tons of holes in it. And it's like anything, those spiders and all those things, they're just going to get into that bathroom anyway. Like, it doesn't even matter if you shut the door. And anyway, and then I remembered that this was the nicest RV park on the island.
Once you were finally cleaned up, we went into town to watch a movie.
I know, we went back into Bar Harbor again. We loved it. Yeah,
we did go to Bar Harbor a lot, and I loved Bar Harbor, and I loved going in there. We actually went to dinner at like Route 66 restaurant, which was probably more interestingly decorated than it was like great food, but but it was fun. A lot of kitschy like Route 66 stuff. But then the main reason that we had gone into town was to go to a movie, and we went to this theater, and it was the Criterion movie theater, and it was actually built in 1932. And
so cool.
Yeah. And has been restored. So it's this sort of like elegant old school movie theater with really high ceilings and all of this sort of Art Deco decorations. There's a balcony, and we actually went and sat in the balcony to watch the movie. The balcony has like little tables by the chairs, and it's these old wooden seats, and
you have your own like sectioned off area, so you have your own private room almost that you're sitting in.
Yeah, sort of like a
box.
Booth. Yeah, like you're right, box. And it was so much fun. We saw Don't Worry Darling, the Olivia Wilde movie. And
how many people do you think were in the audience?
There were probably like 10 people in that theater that night.
Not many.
And I mean, it was like just sort of a weeknight. But you kind of felt like you had the place to yourself, especially since we had our own little private box in the balcony.
Yeah.
Which it was just like general admission ticket, like go sit wherever you want.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. So it's not like we had to pay up to get that. But I had a lot of fun. Would definitely, if we're ever back in Bar Harbor, would go see another movie there.
Yeah.
Do you remember old theaters like that are so cool.
At the beginning of the movie, like there's actually a curtain on stage in front of the screen. And so as the movie starts, they pull open the curtain, just like you see in the movies.
Yeah.
Like in old, movies. And then they also had like old movie theater commercials in black and white. Do you remember that?
Oh, that's right. I had
played
forgotten
like
about
actual
that,
old commercials from back in the day. So that was really fun to see. I'd never seen a lot of those commercials before ever. And it was just, wow, what a way to put you back in the the feel of it all.
It does like really set that tone. But at the same time, they had like all the latest technology when it comes to like screen and sound.
Yeah.
And so like you didn't feel like you were at like a dollar theater where you were stepping back on the quality of movie.
Right.
So they had very intentionally made it the full cinematic experience, but you also get that old school movie vibe. It was a lot of fun.
I'll never forget Don't Worry Darling, that movie now, because of where we saw it.
Yeah, it's definitely like attached to Acadia in my mind. Yeah,
very cool. We did more hiking too. I mean, we actually spent quite a while here. We did Door Mountain Ladder Trail. This ladder trail was not nearly as scary.
This is much more approachable.
Yeah. And it was named after, you may remember me mentioning George Dorr, the father of Acadia. So it was named after him. It was a great trail. We only saw one couple the entire time. So it was very like chill. It was only 2.7 miles. It was a little tough, but it wasn't long. And there was a lot of ladders, a lot of stairs, but nothing too extreme. And it would be even good for older kids. But that was a good one. And then we did a trail by the ocean. Yeah,
we did the Ocean Path Trail. You start at like Sandy Beach, and it's a really good place for pictures. And then you sort of follow along the road with some lookout points and photo ops. It was another dog-friendly trail, so that Maggie got to do it with us, and it was cool because you would sort of jet out to the ocean and then come back and sort of weave your way back out to these different outlooks, and it was a lot of fun. We have some fun pictures of Maggie on that trail. It's one of those that I remember a lot, and it's super flat, approachable. A really nice trail, and one that you don't have to do the whole thing. I think it's like 4.5 miles out and back, but you could just do a little of it and still like have a good experience.
Yeah, it's by far the busiest trail.
Yes, yeah,
tons
a lot
of people
on it. Yeah,
tons of people. Yeah. Well, and then one of my favorite memories is a really easy morning when we did the Wonderland Trail with Maggie, and it's just like 1.3 miles, and it was such an easy hike. Like I literally had my coffee that morning, and was like hiking with coffee, and we just like went to the ocean. I think there were even other people with dogs. It was like pretty dog friendly, and it was a fun one. And I think that kind of wrapped it up for us. That was like our last little fun morning there before we headed out. Yeah,
we had to take off after that. I really liked Acadia. Like I said at the beginning, it's one of my favorite parks. It's got that classic New England oceanside feel to it.
Yeah.
that I had never experienced
Right.
before, and I really enjoyed. I really liked it there.
Yeah, all the rocky shorelines. Then you got like the sailboats in the harbor and the lobsters and like all the fun stuff. The pumpkin cider, like all kinds of good stuff.
And seeing like fall kind of roll in.
Yes.
Was really cool. The leaves changed, like you talked about on our drive to Bar Harbor. We just saw so much change in the one, like we were there like 6 nights, and just seeing it every day was like, wow, it's just becoming more and more fall.
Yeah.
Which for us, growing up in Oklahoma and living in Texas, I feel like it goes from like summer, winter.
Yeah.
Like in fall barely exists. The leaves might change maybe, but you typically just like, oh, we had a freeze and now everything's brown.
Yeah.
And getting to see fall for real was a lot of fun.
Yeah. That's really, really special little memories there. And next up, Shenandoah National Park.
Yep, headed to Shenandoah. Another 2 days of travel where we stay at a Cracker Barrel on our way.
Yeah.
But really enjoyed Shenandoah.
Yeah.
It's one of the ones that we booked that was like, well, we'll check it out. But ended up loving Shenandoah.
Yeah, we really did. I think we were both surprised by how much we liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you guys would like, you can go out there and see the video that accompanies this podcast. It's out there on YouTube. We are also out there on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, sharing and promoting these different episodes and giving you some of our footage on some of that is a little different than what you see in the videos because we actually filmed vertical videos specifically for social media. So you'll see things just a little different out there.
You can also reach out to us via email at travelfomopodcast@gmail.com. Let us know what your favorite New England fall things are. We only got to experience just a little of it. I'm sure there's so much, and we'd love to share it with everybody. We'd love to get ideas for going back to New England ourselves and experiencing more. So let us know your favorite fall things to do in New England.
Yes, love it. The places I really want to go are DC with you. I've been, but I haven't been with you, and I think it'd be so fun. And then Boston, never been. And then New York City, I've been long time ago, but would love for people to give tips on like what to do in those places. Totally different, but would be interested to hear what people have to say.
Yeah, definitely want to plan trips there.
Yeah. Okay, guys, that's it for today. Life is short.
Wander well.